Prohibition was supposed to get rid of alcohol by making it illegal in the United States.
Before Prohibition, the average drinking American spent $17 a year on alcohol.
That's $252 nowadays.
But during Prohibition, the average drinking American spent $34 a year.
That's $500 nowadays. Prohibition put alcohol on the same level as other drugs, meaning the locations who sold alcohol were just as well off, if not more, by selling other illegal drugs.
This was also in part due to the fact that gangsters mostly owned and operated the underground locations where speakeasies were held.
Yeah, so I'm the lead admissions counselor here for Bayside Marin. So my job, I manage a small team of people who, when a client calls in for the first time, they get one of us. And what we try to do is kind of what we call a concierge model. So, we become whoever we connect with. Let's say they connect with me. I'm their point person through the rest of their treatment. So they call in, so many people call in, it's their first time ever calling in, asking for help, maybe for them, maybe for a loved one. They don't know anything. They're like, I know I got insurance. Does this cover insurance? I mean, what do I do? How do I get my person from here to there? How do I get myself from here to there? And so my job is to make all of that happen. And so, I work with their insurance company. I work with their families. I kind of just coordinate everything. And we do this nationwide. So people come from all over the country to be able to come here. We check out their insurance benefits. We see if we can get, insurance to cover some or all of their treatment. We coordinate with them. We do assessments, so we make sure, is this person going to fit what we do here at Bayside Marin? Are they maybe better for is their problem primary substance abuse? Is it primary, psych acuity? It's kind of a chicken or the egg thing. Did they start doing drugs and that led to a lot of depression, anxiety, whatever else, or do they have an organic mental illness and they're using substances to kind of self-medicate? Just figuring out what's going on with that particular person. And then we do something kind of interesting. So we have a unique, my team anyway, has a really unique role at Bayside, which is we also do what's called the utilization review. And what that is once a client comes in, it's one of us calling the insurance company and going, hey, I got so-and-so here, you need to pay for their treatment. And kind of just starting that argument and really kind of going to bat for the client to make sure that they get the most out of their insurance benefit, which is a really difficult process. It's basically calling somebody you've never met and say, hey, I got this guy who neither of us have ever met before, and I need you to give us $54,000 so he can get better. That doesn't go over well a lot of the time. So, we really have to be on our game, and we really have to advocate for our clients to make sure, and we do really well. I mean, because we have this contract with Anthem Blue Cross, most of the people that we see are Anthem Blue Cross clients, and a lot of them come in for, pennies. Some of them completely free of charge for this, luxury treatment program. And so, another thing I do here is I kind of help out with the marketing. I go out and I talk to, professionals, police departments. I've been to Boston, I've been to Hawaii. They've sent me all over the place to work with the marketing team, meet and greet people, doctors reference, to make sure that we're developing this funnel so people all over the country know who we are and what we do and that we're here to help. And it's just really cool because, you get to a point, having done this for a while, I'm at the point now where when somebody calls in and they tell me, oh, my doctor told me to call you, I know that doctor, I know where this person's from, I can get them in, I've done the assessment on the front end, I've talked to their family, so by the time it's time for me to call the insurance and say, hey, this person needs help, it's not a stranger anymore. I'm advocating for somebody I know, and I know their whole backstory, and I'm like, you guys are going to pay me, or I'm going to come find you. It's a really impassioned kind of play that you make for these people. And so what we've seen from that, where a lot of other companies, if they're lucky, maybe they get 5 or 10 days of residential treatment out of an insurance company, we get 30 plus. So people can leave here after a month of solid inpatient treatment, and then they work with, their therapist, their aftercare coordinator, and everything to get what the next steps are. So 30 days, it's not a spin dry by any means. You're not cured after 30 days. It's a lifelong process. So we want to know, what are you going to do after Bayside? And we help you get that set up. But for me, that's been my job, is just working with the clients on the front end. Somebody calls in and they just drop this big mess of a case on your plate, and it's just about kind of taking it apart, finding out what the different features of it are, and figuring out what you can do to help. And if we can, the other thing that's cool is, sometimes we get people that, okay, this is a primary psych case, or this person, they're what we call their psych acuity is too high. They're violent, or they're self-injurious. They cut themselves, they burn themselves, they have an eating disorder, maybe something that we're not able to really deal with here, just being mostly a substance abuse program. We work with a network of providers all over the country. So let's say it's an out-of-network insurance, or an insurance we can't work with, no problem. I've literally got a drawer in my desk that is overflowing with pamphlets, brochures, and stuff for these other programs that I've visited that have come here to tell us about themselves. So if you call into Bayside, the idea is you make one phone call. You call Bayside, and even if we can't take you, we're going to get you to the next place that can. You're not going to call 50 places, and because it's a stressful thing, we just want to give people answers. We want to go, hey, here's how your insurance works. Here's who you should call. And if we can, warm transfer them. So it's just, you made one phone call and you got the answers you needed, even if it wasn't with us. So that's what I do. I've been doing this about 3 years now. I think everybody should, really. There's so many different needs out there, right? Addiction is changing. So many people, you think addict, you think drug addict, you think alcoholic, and you kind of picture those people that, you see kind of shuffling around in the streets and the gutters and that kind of thing. And that's not what it is anymore. So many of the people that we get, they're people that, good folks, working hard, doing their jobs, but, they get injured, they get something bad happens to them, PTSD, whatever it is. And it starts small. It starts with a prescription. Sometimes a lot of people get from your doctor. I don't know if you guys are up on this opiate epidemic that's happening. So many of the heroin addicts we're seeing started off as star athletes in high school or in college, and they were they got injured, a sports injury, a work injury, whatever it is, went to the doctor, got a prescription. Flash forward 2 or 3 years, they're on needle drugs. You wouldn't think, nobody ever expects it's going to happen, but that's what we're seeing more and more of. So it's easy for a lot of people to kind of write off addiction and just say, well, treatment should only be for, the people that deserve it, or the people that, it's not their fault. They were in an accident, or they, or whoever. But it affects so many more people than we realize, and on so many different socioeconomic tiers. So I think it should be for everybody, but that's a big job to tackle. It's a lot of different people to reach at a lot of different levels. And the way treatment's going to look for one of those people that you see out there in the street is going to look a lot different than it's going to look for the guy who's a CEO of a Fortune 500 company. But it affects everybody the same. Yes. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And I say that realizing that would probably drive us out of business, but yes, it should, because the big obstacle, it's not that there aren't enough people out there that care. It's not that there's not enough qualified professionals. That is part of it, but so much of it is just accessibility and affordability. Our company, Bayside Marin, we're the cash pay rate, 30 days of treatment, $54,000. That's not accessible to most people. Thank God we have a contract with Anthem Blue Cross Insurance, right? That makes us, people can come in for literally nothing. They can pay nothing out of pocket and get a month of really high-end luxury treatment. Not every program needs to be Bayside Marin. Not every program needs the bells and whistles. But, there need to be more places that have good quality people. So many places out there, they're run by a milieu staff of other people in recovery, right? So, you're the new client, I'm the old client. I'm the guy, I've got 3 months sober under my belt. I was in your chair a couple of months ago, but now I got a few months, so now I'm helping you. And it's kind of just that system of I hate to say the blind leading the blind, but in a lot of ways that's what it is, because that's how you make a program cheap and affordable and accessible. And so there's a lot of people out there that are just trying to do what they can with what they have, and it's hard. It's really, really hard. And programs like Bayside Marin, the reason there's so few of us is because this level of service, it's incredibly hard to make it accessible to people. But that's what we're trying to do. That's what a lot of places are trying to do. So yeah, I would say it definitely should be accessible to anybody who wants it. The big challenge in that is, getting in front of the insurance companies. There's medical sciences here. The, insurance companies are maybe 10, 15 years behind medical science. So, for example, we talked a little bit about the opiate epidemic. There's a lot of insurance companies that don't want to authorize treatment for opiate-only addiction because it's not life-threatening. When you stop taking heroin, you're not going to have a seizure and die. You're going to be in the worst pain of your life, in the most miserable state of your life for the next 2 or 3 weeks, which is why a lot of people don't quit once they start using. But your insurance isn't going to pay for it because it's not going to kill you to stop on your own. So that's the kind of thing we need to address, in the state legislatures, in the federal government. And unfortunately, it only comes, things only change after a lot of people die. I mean, there's been millions of deaths. I don't know what the statistic is, but somebody dies every, something like 3 to 5 minutes from an opiate overdose. And still, this is the battle we fight every day. So, yeah, I mean, it definitely should be, but there's a lot to do. So, yes, but we got to be careful about that. So, I mean, one, the safety of our guests is always priority one. So, things like, people that have been convicted of violent crimes, like recent violent crimes. I mean, I just got out of jail for killing a guy. Well, maybe not the place for you. But that being said, we do take people who have priors. We do take people who have felony convictions. We do take people who are, maybe even former violent offenders, as long as, there's been sufficient time there and we don't think it's going to be a safety issue. People that have been convicted for drug crimes, yes. The reason we have to be careful is, we want to make sure that if somebody's coming for treatment, they're coming because they really want to get clean and sober and not because it's court mandated. There are a lot of people that call in and just say, well, I got to do this for court, You know what? There's free programs. If all you need is a box checked, there's a lot of free government programs. Yeah, no, they're not the best, but, if you want help, if you really want to get better, come here. Let the professionals spend their time with you. If all you want to do is just kind of get processed so you can go back to doing what you're doing, we're probably not going to be the place. Yeah, it's a really complicated matter. Whenever you get the government involved, it just becomes way more complicated than it needs to be. It would be great if the state and the federal governments offered programs like this. Because, we talked about in the last question, there are state-run programs. And some of them are good, some of them are not so good. But, I mean, those are the places that are dealing with the people that have no money, no resources, those people, we keep alluding to that, you kind of, the archetypal, see this person pushing a shopping cart downtown, screaming at nobody. Those are the kind of people that are getting treated. And we see, especially here in Marin County, there are so many homeless and so many people affected by addiction and mental illness that need those government services. They get so glutted up and it's so hard for them to take new people. It would be great if there was more funding at this level, a program that employs psychologists, psychiatrists, doctors, nurses, can take cases like that and put them before a panel like this. But right now it's just not there, and it's tough because that stuff's all expensive. Doctors, nurses, it runs at a high premium. It's tough to keep the lights on in a place that employs so many people. So that's why the high price points. And that's why the government and the insurance companies are reluctant to put more of their money up. Because it would mean higher taxes. It would mean a lot higher taxes. So as we move, it's nice to see kind of the conversation about socialized health care and medical care, mental health care all being free. It's good to see that happening. People like Bernie Sanders talking about that before the Senate and everything. Whether or not it's going to come to pass in our lifetime, I don't know. We're starting to see stuff like, free community college, which is great. So maybe someday it will happen. I hope it does. But in the meantime, we got to make do. However you get into it, I talk about this as former law enforcement too. Cutting the supply line only does so much. And it's tough now because people are able to go online. I can't tell you how many overdoses we've had because people go online and they think they're buying something online. They get something totally different in the mail. Cutting that supply line, going to the dealers, rehabilitating the people that are putting this stuff out there in the market. that's a great way to help the problem in general. But I mean, if the question is, are these people deserving of it because they're dealers or whatever? Yeah, I mean, you got to get by. A lot of people that wind up, whether they were using or whether they were selling, they weren't doing it to be millionaires. They were doing it because it kept the lights on in the house. They were doing it because it kept food on the table, and it was all they really had to do. So I think a big part of just getting over the drug epidemic in this country in general is going to be breaking down a lot of those kind of stigmas. These people aren't monsters. Maybe it's some criminal activity, but it's not the same out there for everybody. Yeah, I mean, the big push, when the war on drugs happened was just, lock these people up, get them off the street. And we, our thinking at the time, as kind of during the Reagan administration, I think, the thinking at the time was, if we crack down on this thing, if the public sees as an example that we are demonizing these drug users and we are, rounding them up and we're locking them away, then people are going to stop doing drugs because they're too scared. Never ever works that way. So what we ended up with is a lot of overcrowded prisons, which I could talk for a whole nother hour on just the prison system, but it doesn't work. Spending the money on the front end, we could have taken the millions of dollars we spent militarizing police forces and bulking up our prisons and probably billions of dollars on all this stuff, and spent it on good community rehabs. Getting at more drug education and fixing some of the really draconian laws we have around drug use. So there's a lot we could have done, would have been better. And we're starting to see some of that stuff happen now, particularly here in California, which is nice. We still got a long way to go, though. It's hard to track because, we only have people for 30 days and we have a really good alumni program. We try to keep in touch with people after they leave to make sure that, specifically to track those kind of statistics, but also to make sure that they're doing all right. And, some people, they stay in touch for life. Some people kind of disappear off the radar as soon as they leave. Some people, we kind of find out through our alumni program later on. So it's hard to get a really accurate sense of how that all plays out. What I've noticed just from working here is that, we've had repeat clients. We've had people come in multiple times, relapse, but we'll take somebody who's been, let's say, an alcoholic for 20 years and every day, like a pint of vodka every day, gallon, half a gallon of vodka every day for 20 years. We'll take them in after 30 days, they might get a year sober, and then they slip up a little bit and they call saying, I need to come back. I've been drinking the last day or two. And then, we take them back, we do another 30 with them, then they're sober for 4 years. It's stuff like that. It's not always a one and done, but you get a little more each time. And the more active somebody stays in their recovery, if somebody comes and they just do 30 days with us and then they leave and they go home, odds are not very good they're going to stay sober for the rest of their lives. If somebody comes in with us, they leave from here, they go do an aftercare program, they do that for 30 to 45 days, they do an outpatient program, they live in a sober living environment. The more treatment time you can put together, the better your long-term odds of success. And we don't sell this as a cure. We tell people, this is the first step. We're here to get you stable. We're here to get you detoxed. We're here to get, a general understanding of what's going on in your case. And we're here to put a lot of different options for aftercare on your plate. This is not a spin dry. Don't expect that you're going to come in here. You're going to feel great after a couple of weeks when you've been getting, massages and doing yoga and all this stuff. You're going to feel awesome. That's not real. You're going to go back out in the real world and you're going to have triggers. You're going to have stress. You're going to have a lot of horrible things happen to you. You need to have an active plan for your recovery moving forward. So the people that do that, we don't have to worry about them. They come back as alumni speakers. They send us messages. We've got a picture. I'll show it to you guys when we go out. We have a guy who just climbed, I want to say it was like Kilimanjaro or something. He was a Bayside alumni. The guy was just, I say this lovingly, but just like a deadbeat drunk for his entire life. Now he's climbing mountains because he did what we recommended. He stuck with it. He made recovery a part of his life. And years later, now he's in a position where he can do these kinds of things. So that's what I would say. You know, how much time you invest in your sobriety. It's not about which program you go to. It's about how much you make sobriety a part of your daily life. If you do that and you really make that commitment and you surrender to it, your odds are really good. You know, if you treat it like a spin dry, like, okay, I did recovery, now I don't have to think about it ever again, it's going to get you back. So, yeah. So the story goes, I applied for the Santa Rosa Police Department kind of as a joke, because there was no way they were going to hire somebody like me to be a cop. I needed a job. My friend literally just forwarded me the thing, like, hey, look, they're going to pay to put people through the academy. And for 6 months, I interviewed with these people. And next thing I know, I'm sitting in front of the chief of police, and he's shaking my hand, he's saying, welcome to the force. And I'm looking at the closet because I think someone's going to pop out with a camera. I'm like, that's a joke, you idiot. You know, but I got on with them, and it was a great job, and it was a great department to work for, and I really loved doing it. But I was a police officer in the sense that if you put a cow in a tree, it's a bird. My whole background is in social services. You know, I got my master's degree in forensic psychology. I've worked for homeless shelters. I've worked for, tutoring companies for kids with autism. Mental health has always been my wheelhouse. And so, for me, going out there on the street as a cop and seeing, the drug addict in the gutter, and seeing, the guy who, was threatening himself with a knife or had a gun to his head, my reaction wasn't to go, take my gun out and go, put it down, put it down, put it down. My reaction was to be like, hey man, come here, let's talk. Tell me what's going on. You seem like you're in a bad space, And that didn't really super duper fly well with the brass. Turns out when, you've got a guy and he's got a gun to his head, the approach that they want you to take isn't to go up and offer to sit down with him. It's to get the gun out of his hand. So it was just sort of personally at odds for what I knew to be true about myself and about the world. And there was a way that a lot of the police officers had of looking at some of these people that I just didn't see. I've worked with these people, and I know where they're coming from. It got to a point where I felt more connected with the people that I was going out in the street and contacting, the homeless people and the mentally insane people and all these things. I felt more connected with them than I did with a lot of my fellow officers. And so I made the decision to move away. The other piece of it too, kind of unique to drugs, was that, I'd pick up somebody for a drug charge, I'd take them to the jail, I'd book them into the jail, and by the time I'm done filling out the 2 hours of paperwork that it takes to book somebody into jail, the jail has already cut the guy loose with a citation, a ticket that he's never going to pay, for a court date that he's never going to show up to, and they cut him loose, and he's standing over at the bus stop waiting to go back to the place I pulled him out of. So I was like, and I would arrest the same people multiple times per week. I was like, this isn't doing anything. And if I didn't arrest him, I'm the one who got my head chewed off, Well, why are you doing your job? Like, I'm not doing my job. What are you talking about? He's going to be there tomorrow, just like he was there yesterday and the day after. So I made the decision to leave, and literally the day that I quit the police force, this job showed up on my radar. And they wanted me here because, I'd worked as a police officer, and they wanted somebody to actually help attract first responder business. They wanted somebody who could speak to police officers. I mean, that's a population that you see a lot of PTSD, a lot of substance abuse. And because of the way things are with their unions, they're really afraid to ask for help. They're afraid that if they say, hey, I have a problem, they're going to get parked at a bench or parked at a desk for the rest of their life, and they're not going to get to be cops anymore, or firefighters or EMTs or whatever it is. So, they wanted somebody who could kind of, work with them and speak their language a little bit. And I was happy to do that because, I'm more than grateful for my time on the force, and I want to give back to, the other first responders. And since then, it's been night and day. Now I take somebody off the street, I get them off the street for 30 days so they're not back out there tomorrow. And by the time they leave, they're not a drug addict anymore. And that's an incredible feeling. It's been such a cool place to work. And I feel like, for every one life I might have saved as a police officer, I've already saved 10 working here. This is definitely rehab, recovery, all that kind of stuff, therapy. This is the approach to solving the drug problem, not beat them down, lock them up, never let them see the light of day again.